Dr. Colin Campbell wants to set the record straight about his involvement in Dr. Fuhrman's ill-fated weight loss study. Dr. Campbell has broken it all down in a new letter that is now on his website. Today we're going to look at that letter and see what Dr. Campbell has to say. We're also going to look at how the Federal Trade Commission views the kind of false statements that Dr. Fuhrman was making in the media about his study. Hey there, I am Jeff Nelson. Thanks for tuning in. As you may have noticed, I've kind of reached the age where I say, what the heck? I'm going to start calling things out publicly like I see them. Over the past few years, the online vegan community has been sort of overrun with health misinformation. I decided to start talking about poorly done research on my YouTube channel and how these studies negatively affect both experts and lay people. The healthy vegan diet is really pretty straightforward, yet some people who seem to want to be gurus make it seem like it's very complicated. It's almost like you need to be a chemist to be vegan. And they lead you to believe that you must pay very close attention to them in order to be healthy. They create a bunch of confusing rules. They list, certain foods that are magical that you should try to eat every day. And it's all very reductionistic, and it's not based on any credible science, although they pretend it is. So some gurus even scaremonger people into following them with threats of Alzheimer's or early death, and they try to convince vulnerable people that they should buy their magic elixirs and their theoretical nutrition ideas. Recently, I made a video about a bogus weight loss study for which Dr. Joel Fuhrman was responsible. The video is called Campbell versus Fuhrman, Epic Takedown. It's linked in the description of this video. If you haven't seen it, feel free to check it out. Dr. Fuhrman's weight loss study was a series of case reports. They call it a retrospective chart review, aka a review of some of Dr. Fuhrman's patients. Dr. Fuhrman assembled patient files of people who had come to see him over a 3-year period, people who wanted to lose weight, and he gave those charts to a former intern. The former intern studied the charts for weight loss information and created a review of those charts. Now, we know that this weight loss study of Dr. Fuhrman's was filled with amateurish errors, but perhaps not coincidentally, the errors made the weight loss results of the nutritarian diet appear much more impressive than the real medical records reflected. Apparently, Dr. Campbell saw my video and he decided to weigh in himself. So he posted a letter on his website, and I'm linking to that letter down in the description. You can go and read it yourself in full. But I want to summarize briefly and highlight some of the points. In his letter, Dr. Campbell begins by talking about how Dr. Fuhrman asked for help to get his study published, and since Dr. Fuhrman didn't have much research experience, Dr. Campbell agreed. Over a year or two, things moved slowly forward, and Dr. Campbell finally gets a manuscript. He checked it over, he presumed that the data was accurate, and assumed that no one had done anything sketchy. That was not a good assumption, as it turned out. Dr. Campbell says Dr. Fuhrman submitted the paper to 2 journals, both of which rejected it. So that was it, Dr. Campbell thought. Cut to several years later, and Dr. Campbell gets a phone call from Roberta Russell, who says she has a copy of Dr. Fuhrman's study, she has obtained the data, and she is concerned that it looks like a totally bogus study. Dr. Campbell writes, "She called me to correct the situation, referring to problems in what some people were calling the Campbell weight loss study. I said that I did not have such a study, so she emailed a copy of Dr. Fuhrman's study, which, unbeknownst to me, listed me as the first author on the copy that is archived, meaning I was the person who had actually done the research, thus was the most responsible." So here's why Dr. Campbell was shocked. Dr. Campbell says, "I agreed to allow my name included as co-author on the study, occupying the middle, secondary position, and listed as Sarter, Campbell, Fuhrman. This order signifies that the first author, Sarter, is the person actually doing the research, and the last author is the senior person responsible for the research, Fuhrman." After Roberta Russell sent him the study, Dr. Campbell said he saw that he was listed first, the person who did the actual research. He writes, "I had not known that Dr. Fuhrman had been able to publish his study, nor, most importantly, that the order of authorship had been rearranged without my knowledge or consent, wherein I was now the first author as if I had done the study. Dr. Campbell goes through in detail and tells what happened. He got the data. He was shocked to find out that the data was false. He was shocked to watch some of the video appearances of Dr. Fuhrman, which Dr. Fuhrman put up on his website, and to see Dr. Fuhrman making flagrant exaggerations and multiple false statements about the study. Such false statements could have driven tens or hundreds of thousands of book sales from desperate people whom he was deceiving. In his letter, Dr. Campbell explains why he believes Dr. Fuhrman knew he was lying when he made the statements, that he didn't simply make a mistake, as Dr. Fuhrman has claimed. He goes on, "It defies credibility that a practicing physician would believe and publicly claim that 100 of his own patients, whom he knew personally and was regularly seeing in person, had experienced enormous weight loss and kept it off, when in fact only 4 of his patients among the 56 in his report had actually done so. I struggled with the journal to publish a retraction and expected Dr. Fuhrman to do the same, as is customary when a study has been revealed to be filled with errors, inaccuracies, and of little or no scientific value. Dr. Fuhrman refused to retract. I had naively helped him in the beginning, only to become greatly disappointed by his misconduct." Okay, so that is Dr. Campbell's letter. When my video first came out discussing Russell's book and exposing Dr. Fuhrman's study to be bogus, Dr. Fuhrman's reaction was not credible, at least not to me. He did not express regret that he had published a mistake-riddled study. He didn't express remorse that he had profited from a deception. That's what someone who feels bad about what they did might do, especially when they have benefited from these mistakes. Fuhrman did not publicly admit the obvious either, which is that this fake study actually showed that most of his patients failed on his diet, dropped out, regained weight, and that his diet results were just as disappointing as just every other diet out there, basically. So Dr. Fuhrman has recently been on social media on what I call the Fuhrman Reputation Recovery Tour. No one who has interviewed him has asked him any tough questions, though, like why was a woman patient changed to a man in your study, making the average weight loss look higher than it really was? And why did Dr. Fuhrman continue to employ a researcher who, according to Russell, allegedly messed with the data in the weight loss study? So I think the case Dr. Campbell makes in his letter that Dr. Fuhrman had to have known he was not being truthful at the time he made these untrue claims about his study, I think Dr. Campbell is rather convincing there, at least to me. Dr. Fuhrman had exaggerated and said that there were 63 of his patients in the study or 100 of his patients, when we know there were actually 56. So if you had 600 patients a year that you were seeing, as Dr. Fuhrman stated he had at the time, and 100 of those patients had lost an average of 53 pounds and they kept it off for 2 years, that would mean that every 5th or 6th patient you were seeing that was coming to you had some miraculous weight loss story. And there were scores and scores of people coming to your office over time, and they'd all lost this weight. And a doctor would think in his head of, 100 people, 100 faces, 100 names of these amazing people that he personally knew. And if you were on a show being interviewed and you were saying there were 100 people and they lost 53 pounds and they all kept it off, you would have, these are people that are in your mind that you would be thinking of, 100 different people. But we know that there were only 4 people that actually fit the bill, and who lost weight and kept it off. And it was just 34 pounds, not 53. It's still a good amount, but it's not the greatest amount in history, far from it. When Dr. Fuhrman told interviewers and audiences that 100 or 63 people lost all this weight and kept it off for 2 years, when there were only 4 people who would have popped into his mind as filling that, we know that those 100 people didn't exist. And when he was saying that, I think he knew that those 100 people didn't exist. So did Dr. Fuhrman just make a mistake when he inflated that number, as he claims now? Or are Dr. Campbell's suspicions correct? Let's listen to Dr. Fuhrman.
Speaking to Dr. Joel Fuhrman, a classmate of mine, but also a well-known author now, his latest book, Eat for Health, Lose Weight, Keep It Off, Look Younger, Live Longer.
What if I let you eat all the foods you wanted to, met your caloric needs that your body requires from optimal health, met all your nutrient needs for perfect health, and yet your body could lose, 12 to 15 pounds the first month, about 8 to 11 pounds the second month.
12 to 15 pounds?
12 to 15 pounds the first month.
It's a lot of weight.
It's a lot of, and by conventional standards, it seems like a lot of weight. But I know if they come back and only lost 8 pounds, they didn't follow the plan. And by the way, I just had a recent study published this month in a peer-reviewed medical journal where they followed 63 people following the diet plan, and they lost more weight than any study in medical history. And they kept it off, and they followed them for 2 years. None of the participants gained any weight back, and that was the major difference between other diet plans.
Where was this published?
It was published in the journal Alternative Therapies in Health and Medicine.
In this clip, Dr. Fuhrman sounds very confident, very glib, very certain of himself. He seems to act like he knows the facts very well. He knows the details. He can rattle them off quickly without thinking practically. He's asserting with great confidence and great energy and being very emphatic. Does this sound like someone who is not in control of the facts? He's got the number of people, although that's wrong. He's got the name of the journal. He's got the fact that he keeps repeating more than once that not one participant regained weight. It was an enormous, unprecedented success, he says, so he seems very certain of all of this. Let's break this down and see how many untrue things he actually says here.
And by the way, I just had a recent study published this month in a peer-reviewed medical journal where they followed 63 people following the diet plan.
Well, we know it was 56 participants, not 63. Next, we know that no one in his study was followed. This wasn't a study where anyone was followed. There weren't researchers watching people over time and keeping track. These were just medical records that Dr. Fuhrman had kept when seeing patients, which he gave to his former intern. They dug them out of a file cabinet somewhere, so no one was followed. That's misleading to claim, and it gives the wrong idea about the study. So that is 2 wrong statements.
And they lost more weight than any study in medical history.
We know that they didn't lose more weight than any study in medical history. Calculations were done and made the weight loss 20 pounds greater than reality, so that's a 3rd false item.
And they kept it off, and they followed them for 2 years. None of the participants gained any weight back.
Well, again, no one was followed for 2 years. No one was followed. Dr. Fuhrman is the only person who ever saw these people. And we know that the assertion that none of the participants gained any weight back, that was also false. Only 4 participants didn't gain any weight back. Most participants did regain. So now we're up to 5 false statements here.
And that was the major difference between other diet plans. Where
was this?
We know this is also untrue. Most of his patients did gain the weight back, so that's 6 false statements. And when he asserts that the major difference between his diet plan and the diet plans of other people, that's also false. Dr. Fuhrman's diet plan was about the same as other diet plans out there. It really wasn't much difference in terms of its success rate. So that's a total of 7 false statements in about 20 seconds, or a new false statement coming out of Dr. Fuhrman's mouth every 3 seconds. But take note of his demeanor here, the easy way he spat out these untruths. He spoke with great confidence and emphatic feeling, but it was all completely wrong. He gave specific details about the study and the participants, and it really sounded like he knew what he was talking about, but none of it was true. Again, Dr. Fuhrman is asking us to believe his false statements were all an innocent mistake. One thing people can learn from this experience is that no matter how confident Dr. Fuhrman may sound when talking about something, and he can sound very, very confident and sure of what he is saying, but by his own admission, though, he could be completely wrong. Dr. Campbell didn't buy it. In his letter, he wrote things like, "This was obviously false, and Dr. Fuhrman had to know it when he said so, and it defies credibility. And Dr. Fuhrman saw his study patients repeatedly and should have known that 100 or all of them, depending on which talk he was giving, had not lost and kept off such a large amount of weight." I personally have seen this exact kind of thing before when I hear Dr. Fuhrman talk about research around nuts or omega-3 or other supplements that he sells. He can speak with great confidence and certainty and be very emphatic, but it can turn out he was completely wrong when you fact check him, just like on this appearance of Dr. Oz. So imagine going to a surgeon and the surgeon tells you that there's been a study of 100 of his patients and they were followed for 2 years and every patient had a perfect result in their surgery. 100% of them had successfully recovered with no further problem of any kind. And you might think, hey, this is the surgeon for me. And later you find out that none of it was true, that only 4% of the surgeon's patients had actually had a completely successful outcome, and most had problems. How would you feel? Would that surgeon have some liability for telling you untrue information, and maybe you had relied on that information and paid him money? I believe that doctors and researchers and scientists must be held to a very high bar, and especially in cases where the science that they're dealing with is closely tied to their own personal financial interests. Another interesting thing I learned from Dr. Campbell's letter, Dr. Fuhrman had 3 years to run with this wrong information, 3 years before Dr. Campbell saw the study and put a stop to these false statements. Dr. Fuhrman appears to have gotten a lot of use out of that study for 3 years before it was caught. Why would Dr. Campbell care so much about having his name on that study? Here's one reason.
You can't talk your way out of this one. That's what a federal judge in Chicago told the silver-tongued former infomercial king Kevin Trudeau today before ordering him off to jail.
No deprivation.
But when he went on TV and said all of that was easy.
It's the fastest, easiest, most effective way to lose weight, period.
The FTC pounced. A federal judge ruled that Trudeau's ads misled thousands of customers and ordered him to pay back $37.6 million.
Now, I want to mention as an aside, the reporters on this story we just watched on Kevin Trudeau's crimes, these reporters are not doctors. They're not medical professionals of any sort. They are reporters. They don't need a special degree or qualification to talk about Kevin Trudeau committing crimes, just as I don't need a special degree or medical qualification to talk about Dr. Fuhrman's conduct. The point of this clip we just watched, obviously, is that people's reputations can be ruined in the scientific world and in the real world for doing this kind of thing, exaggerating, making false claims while making money off of weight loss books and products. That is a real concern. Most states have web pages from their attorney general warning people how to spot weight loss scams and encouraging people to report them. This is from the Maryland Attorney General's website, and it says, "Don't fall for phony weight loss claims." And they have tips of how to report it. The FTC has lots of information and encourages people to make complaints about hucksters using false information to sell books and products. You can see how to make a complaint. The FTC even has a guide for media to use to decide what kinds of guests you should have on your show and what kinds of ads you should accept. They call it the Gut Check Guide, and they give examples of the kinds of claims that should make you think twice before you let someone on a show with a weight loss book or product. This is for places like networks or shows, talk shows like Dr. Oz, considering booking a guest or running an ad. It says, if one of these 7 claims crosses your desk, do a gut check. Consult the appropriate person in your company and think twice before running any ad that says a product. 1, causes weight loss of 2 pounds or more a week for a month or more without dieting or exercise. 2, causes substantial weight loss no matter what or how much the consumer eats. 3, causes permanent weight loss even after the consumer stops using the product. 4, blocks the absorption of fat or calories to enable consumers to lose substantial weight. I saw this in a video the other day of Dr. Fuhrman saying that nuts will make you lose weight, that they block absorption, they get rid of LDL, and so on. It's a lot of nonsense. I could go through that, but I do see him repeating some of this same discredited research to try and push nuts. Okay, continuing on. Number 5, safely enables consumers to lose more than 3 pounds per week for more than 4 weeks. Okay, this one would seem to apply to Dr. Fuhrman. He told Dr. Oz that the average person could lose between 12 and 15 pounds a month on his diet. So that's 4 pounds a week people should expect, which means this would be a red flag by Dr. Fuhrman. He also said that if you lose only 8 pounds, which would be 2 pounds a week, then you're not doing his diet correctly. So watch out. This is a claim that should have set off alarms for Dr. Oz. Number 6, causes substantial weight loss for all users. Okay, would be another red flag Dr. Oz should have known. Dr. Fuhrman was saying no one regained the weight, that all users got a huge result, and it kept them that way for 2 years. We know that was a falsehood now, but if Dr. Oz and his staff had been using this gut check list, they might not have ended letting Dr. Fuhrman on the show, since this clearly turned out to be a bullshit claim by Dr. Fuhrman. Number 7, causes substantial weight loss by wearing a product on the body or rubbing it into the skin. It goes on. Some gutsy con artists may repeat a gut check claim verbatim, and it describes this way: you can outfox the fraudsters by understanding what makes each of those claims bogus. Fine-tuning your falsity detector will make it easier for you to spot deception when marketers try to slip a false claim past you by paraphrasing or using synonyms. More vegans would benefit by learning how to do this. If you're at a talk or you're watching a video and someone is saying, eat nuts to lose weight, or they're saying nuts will make you live longer, or they're saying, low fat will hurt your brain, or you need this supplement to prevent a disease. Any of these kinds of unsupported claims, you need to be able to detect this and protect yourself from unsupported claims and hucksters. Remember, some people can speak with great authority and they're very emphatic and will keep repeating very weak evidence with a lot of emotion as if it's real. And it can often turn out to be just like Dr. Fuhrman's appearance on Dr. Oz, though, completely untrue and not supported by anything credible. I would add, watch out for huge hyperbole, big oversized claims of science when they don't actually deliver any science. This isn't science-based, but this is faith-based diet guru doing that. And here's an example.
The only thing ever been proven in the history of science to radically extend lifespan is moderate caloric restriction in an environment of micronutrient excellence.
Now, what Dr. Fuhrman is saying here is completely false. He is saying that the only thing ever to have been proven in the history of science, that's a red flag right there. When someone is talking in giant exaggerations or puffery or superlatives, remember Dr. Fuhrman's weight loss study was the greatest ever in the history of medicine or some such rubbish. This statement of Dr. Fuhrman's is not only not the only thing ever to have been proven, it's not even true. First, there's no research anywhere that says that calorie restriction plus micronutrient excellence has accomplished anything, let alone extending lifespan. This term micronutrient excellence, there's no definition for that. It's a meaningless commercial slogan that Dr. Fuhrman himself coined for selling his program. And that's fine. Everybody's free to invent their own terms, but there's no credible study anyone has done of anything called micronutrient excellence. He is making up a claim and offering nothing but your faith in his confidence to support it. Again, there's no valid studies that I've ever seen of micronutrient excellence, let alone with calorie restriction, and it's not necessarily even beneficial or desirable. So be careful believing too much from someone who is constantly exaggerating and puffing things up, especially when they want to claim, whatever they're doing is the best such and such in history. Now, let's talk about Dr. Oz again. Since his interview with Dr. Fuhrman and with other people touting weight loss miracles, Dr. Oz was dragged before Congress. This is from a congressional hearing. It was titled, "Protecting Consumers from False and Deceptive Advertising of Weight Loss Products." And it says at one point, "We will also hear today from Dr. Mehmet Oz. He offers a unique perspective of being both a medical doctor and the host of a very popular daytime show that frequently airs segments on weight loss issues and products, and that is frequently cited in the false and deceptive advertisements used to market questionable weight loss products." Now, I like Dr. Oz. I think he's an interesting guy who's trying to help people. But I also think Congress was right to try to rein him in and get him to think harder about protecting the public from unscrupulous people who don't tell the truth about weight loss books and products.
Where I do think I've made it more difficult for the FTC is that in an intent to engage viewers, I used flowery language. I used language that was very passionate, but it ended up not being helpful but incendiary.
Now, we know that Dr. Fuhrman uses his own studies to push his products. There's nothing wrong with that. But if people are using phony studies to sell products, they may be prosecuted. Here's an example from 2014 of a case brought by the FTC. It resulted in a $26.5 million fine. This is a case where the defendants, they did their own research, but it turned out to be bogus and filled with many mistakes. The defendants did not have competent and reliable scientific evidence to support these claims, according to the FTC's complaint. I mean, you definitely can do your own research if you're honest and if you follow your responsibility to be as accurate as possible. And if you find that your product or your diet doesn't work like you hoped, then, don't sell it. You can see how easy it is to abuse science and defraud innocent consumers. It's a serious problem. And it's very obvious to me why Dr. Campbell adamantly wanted his name removed from Dr. Fuhrman's bogus weight loss study. He didn't want to be associated, first of all, with low quality, garbage science, but he didn't want to risk exposure or fines or even jail for being part of a marketing fraudulent, claims for financial gain if that, was detected. Dr. Campbell's reputation is everything to him because he's a real scientist. After I released my video, Dr. Fuhrman and his team published their smear against Dr. Campbell. Dr. Fuhrman falsely claimed Dr. Campbell had been in a fight with him and that Dr. Campbell was angry. You can freeze this frame if you want to read Dr. Fuhrman's smear. Dr. Campbell's letter refutes this rather ridiculous assertion of Fuhrman's. Dr. Fuhrman chose to level a personal smear of Campbell rather than apologizing for his own misconduct. The smear was just a distraction. I want to make sure that people understand my own position here. I encourage people to sell their own products, whether that be books or supplements or clothes or videos or conferences or trips or your services, whatever anyone wants to sell. In fact, I support people in the vegan community who want to be entrepreneurs because the innovators creating great products push the movement forward in a positive way. I am not anti-capitalist, not by a long shot. I don't even have an issue with people doing their own research, but lying is not okay. Scaring people with lies in a trusting community into buying useless products, that's not ethical. Smearing venerated people like Colin Campbell, that's a whole new low. Dr. Fuhrman has said that he no longer uses his discredited weight loss study. He wrote recently after I made my video, "I do not have the flawed 2008 study in question listed on my website or included in my books since the flaws came to light." Well, the flaws didn't come to light, they were exposed. But he is still using the flawed study. Here is an article from March 2019, just a few months ago. In the article, it's written by Dr. Fuhrman. He talks about, "I have seen a nutritarian diet produce astounding results in my practice," and so on. But in this article, for some reason, Dr. Fuhrman is trying to assert that his diet is superior to a low-fat, plant-based diet. And he writes, "To provide optimal levels of protective micronutrients, a diet must be vegetable-based, not grain-based," and so on. Down here is in contrast to a high-nutrient vegetable-based diet with beans as the preferred carbohydrate source, decrease triglycerides, lower blood glucose, and accelerate fat loss. And then he's got footnotes here of number 8 and number 10. And when you look at the footnotes that he's citing to back this up, you see it's a study by Neil Bernard. And then you see he is comparing that with his own discredited weight loss study, which still has Dr. Campbell's name in it. So Dr. Fuhrman is still using this discredited study to his benefit. He's using this bogus study to try and say that his program is better than Dr. Bernard's when it clearly isn't. Dr. Fuhrman's study is filled with nonsense lipid numbers. Roberta Russell showed how the lipid numbers, the cholesterol and all of that blood glucose and so on, were fudged and never fixed when they revised the study. So Dr. Fuhrman is not being straight when he says he stopped using this fake study. He's still using it to sell his product, and he's citing it elsewhere. Like here's another recent article, and it says highly significant reductions in blood pressure, LDL, cholesterol, fasting glucose, and body weight have been reported in persons who have made the change to a high micronutrient diet. And it's number 18. Again, it's the same study. So he's using this fake research to promote his diet. And you really need your BS meter running on overtime if you're reading anything about the nutritarian diet, I'm afraid. Now, I just want to mention one more thing. If you followed my series, you know that I've exposed where Dr. Fuhrman did not reveal conflicts of interest in a study about vegan athletes needing supplements, and the journal later published what's called a core agenda, which is a correction showing that they had discovered Dr. Fuhrman profited from the sale of the supplements he was recommending in his article. So they published that. Well, I was contacted this weekend, and someone said that they had reported Dr. Fuhrman a year ago for 2 studies, where he recommended supplements, and the person and Dr. Fuhrman's conflict of selling supplements was not shown in the study. And so he wrote to the journal, and they wrote back to him, and he showed me the email that they agreed. And so they sent him what they were going to publish for those 2 first studies of Dr. Fuhrman. Here is what the journal wrote back to this person last year when they said that Dr. Fuhrman's conflict should have been disclosed. They wrote, "I wanted to send one final note to close the loop on the Dr. Fuhrman articles you brought to our attention. Attached is the official core addendum that was just approved for publication. Please let me know if you have any additional questions. Thank you. And then they publish these core agenda for the 2 Fuhrman studies, and it says the author maintains a website at drfuhrman.com, which sells nutritional supplements and other health-related products, and so on. So that is 3 studies that we know of where Dr. Fuhrman apparently didn't disclose conflicts, but the journal subsequently published core agendas to disclose them. In one study, the weight loss study, we know, which probably should have been retracted because it was so bad. So that is not a great scientific record, in my opinion. Contrast that with Dr. Campbell, who has 350 completed scientific studies with no conflicts or self-serving mistakes. Dr. Campbell's research has all been funded by public money, such as through the National Institutes of Health, the NIH. He doesn't have conflicts of interest because he was never involved in science for money. He's a real researcher. Dr. Fuhrman seems to have a hard time getting through studies without blurring the boundaries between research and sales. That's today's video. Thank you for tuning in. Please hit the like button, hit subscribe so that you know when I have another one coming out. Please share your comments. I'd love to hear what you guys think, and I'll try and answer. Thanks very much for watching.